Hello, my name is Paul Blachère. I am the co-founder and creative director at Homo Ludens, which is a small studio currently working on a tycoon game named Blooming Business Casino.
Talk a little about your studio because I originally thought it was a collective, but it is a studio that actually makes games.
Yes, so the studio was co-founded. We co-founded the studio with David, the producer, on the game. Actually, a year back, give or take, and we've now 15 people. We've raised some money from people from the industry, so senior people in the industry who thought that the business plan was good and stuff like this, and we wanted to actually make a studio that would show everyone that there was no excuse for the game industry not to treat people more fairly, because there is a lot of value in the game industry. I mean, it's one of the, if not the most valuable cultural industry on earth. And so the idea is we want to show that you can actually spread the value that is made from game throughout the process, and you don't have to squeeze some people, especially not to the extent that we've seen, and so in the industry. And so basically, with David, we found ourselves in a bad situation. We thought, you know what, there is nothing that actually entices us to work. There is no good company that we really want to join on the market currently. So let's just make it.
What are some of the advantages with being your own developer and your own publisher as opposed to just being a developer or just being a publisher?
Well, I think it comes mostly from the fact that David and I have experience as publishers. So we've both worked in publishing houses. And so the thing is, we have those skills, and we feel like publishers have a role, and that role is to get people who just want to focus on making games, make games, and deal with everything else. The problem is the way we want to make the games means that we need to have the reins on every single part of the operation, ideally. For example, a big part of the studio is actually hearing out what people have to say when they play the game. But the thing is, we know that most people don't go on social media to tell the devs what they think about the game. And so it's really important for us that we kind of use telemetry, not to drive up monetization or stuff like that, but just to know how people are playing the game and really exploit that data so that we can actually make the game better for everyone and not just for the vocal minority. Which doesn't mean that we're not going to listen to the people who talk to us. Of course, they're really important because they're engaged and their voice matters. But we just need to check the biases that we might have when making the game.
I feel like there are so many ways to interact with studios and developers that make games now. It can almost be overwhelming between like Reddit, social media, Discord. In your research, is there a particular one that you notice people use more over others, or that one that maybe your studio primarily focuses on?
We haven't seen like the silver bullet. I don't think there is one social media that is more used. We do know that you have to have a different message on different social media. So that doesn't mean that you are a hypocrite. It just means that on Discord you are going to go into more detail than you might actually do on Twitter. And on Reddit it's more going to be about getting people to tell you what they think, what they do, or maybe have like a one-stop shop for everything that the community is going to create. So from memes to mods or whatever, I think Reddit is much more sustainable for most people than Discord would be. For example, if you just want to check in once a week to see what's up before playing the game, like, oh, which mod do I want to play, which new build I should use, or stuff like this.
And then talk about your studio. Are you guys all located in France? Are you guys internationally? You guys are a remote office?
So we were born in the coronavirus pandemic. So the thing is, we started during the first lockdown in France, which was in March, so more than a year and a half ago. And it was only David and I. And we hired 2 people coming in, and we made a prototype basically during the first lockdown. And when we came out of lockdown, that's when we started going to people, like established people in the industry, and tell them, okay, fund our studio. We want to show everyone what people can do if you treat them well, etc., etc. And the thing is, we were mostly remote. And we are currently now, since vaccines have been coming in, like half of the studio is already vaccinated, and so people can now come back to the office, and we are working on a demo build. And so basically, we are all hands on deck currently inside the studio, but we are not forcing anyone to come back to the office if they don't want to. But since we are mostly French people from who live in Paris, a lot of people are coming to the studio anyway.
Do you think
or want to come to the studio? Sorry.
Right. Do you think that, I mean, there was a lot of terrible things that the pandemic did for the world, but do you think it helped not just your studio, but other game developers realize that you can develop games at home and be in all different areas of the planet without having to all come to an office? Do you think that helped with that, like opening up developers or other studios' eyes that you didn't need to have a office with everyone working there all the time, that you could work at home?
I think there are two types of studios that would actually benefit, or that actually didn't, feel so. It didn't feel so painful for them to work remotely. Firstly, it's the studios who had no processes but really small teams. So people with really high experience, they know how they work together. They're established, and those people, I mean, they could make a game with blindfolds and not even speaking to each other, right? And the other one are the companies that have big processes, and so they know exactly what they're doing. I'm thinking about, for example, in France, big companies, Ubisoft, and those guys, I'm sure it was way easier for them. There was some inertia, of course, to get the remote office ball rolling. But in the end, what really makes going remote hard is actually working with people you are not used to working with, and that was the struggle we had at first. It's that we didn't know each other, we didn't know what our reflexes were, what our biases were, and so it was it was a hard lesson to learn. But I think we were in the right moment at that time, because we were working on the prototype, and so if we did something wrong, it was okay because it's a prototype. Everybody expects it to be broken.
During obviously your studio is located in France mainly, but is there a difference in work culture or work ethics that you notice, like internationally? I mean, let's compare it to the US, because that's a pretty extreme example, I feel.
I don't feel like there is such a big difference in work ethics. I think it's more due to the fact that the industry is quite homogeneous. A lot of people that are in the industry are passionate about what they do. They want to ship good games that are at high level of quality, and so the lows are different. And so there are extremes we cannot go to in France that might be okay in the US in terms of, for example, laying off people after a game or stuff like this. But I think it's a good thing, because to us, it's more about are people well adjusted? Do they have the time to breathe? Because we have very hard intellectual and creative work in making video games, and so we need to have breaks. And so that means to 5 weeks of holidays in France, and it means 8 hours a day and no more. We actually have people leave the studio once if we see them working too late or stuff like this, because you have to keep people in good shape. Just rationally, if you don't, you are going to have them collapse in the middle of the marathon, because now games are live. You have to to sustain them for a long time, and so you have to have sustainable practices in your company. But I don't think it's so different in the US. It's more like the companies, the big corporations, they will do whatever they are allowed to do, I think, and sometimes even more. But for small companies, I don't think it's so different.
Just because I think it's an interesting topic of discussion, I want to get your personal opinion of the 4-day work week, which has been thrown around for years. People are saying the 4-day work week is superior or whatever to the 5-day work week. What do you feel about that argument, the 4-day to the 5-day work week, specifically in video games?
So in France, legally, we work 35 hours a week, which is a lot less than in other countries. But actually, people actually work 37.5 hours, which is 8 hours for 5 days, something like this. And then they have additional leaves to compensate. But the thing is, the 4-day work week could work. The problem that we have is that it changes. To me, it's just a logistical change. It's nothing else. So if we want that, we could have that. The only issue is that if you're a small player, you want to get the cost lower. And so we are a new company. We are 15 people. We want to treat everyone right. But if now we had to switch to 4 days a week, it would mean that we couldn't ship as much. I don't think that we wouldn't do it because, of course, I think it's something that's interesting. And if the employees want it, for sure, it's something we can talk about. But I think there are situations in which it's much easier to do. For example, if you are if you are working on a game where you have 200 people, you have redundancies. But if you have a 4-day work week and you are only 15 people, you get one person that is sick one day, and now you've lost a lot more. So of course now it's the boss talking in me, but I think we should strive to go there because what it means that it will open up new spots in the industry. And if you have new spots, you can get people who have been marginalized or who have been put to the sidelines that can come into the industry, and it will just make the place a better place to live, create, and so the market is going to benefit from it immensely.
I mean, speaking of like games, obviously you are a gaming studio and you're making a game currently called Blooming Business Casino. Can you talk a little bit about this casino sim?
Yeah, so we are not a sim really because we are not trying to replicate the whole casino management experience that exists in real life. We are more trying to really mine pop culture and people's image of what casinos are like. And so, for example, you are not going to handle a real casino in Vegas. What you're going to do is that we are going to put you into the shoes of like De Niro in Scorsese's casino or something like this. The idea is really that you are going to live the fantasy of owning and managing a casino and enjoying it. And the formula that we're using is the Tycoon formula. The Tycoon formula is, quite old now. It's from the late 90s. We are really influenced by the old Bullfrog games. And for example, all of the direct interactions that you had in Dungeon Keeper, where your cursor was literally a hand, where you could grab your monsters. Well, here you can grab your employees. You can, if you're a machine that's broken, you can just try to kick it back to life, and there's a chance that this will happen. If you see that your employees are slacking off, you can just grab them and put them to work. If you see that something wasn't cleaned, you can just clean it yourself. Basically, you can be the micromanager if you want to, but if you want to scale up your casino operation, you will have to build your house of cards and in the best and most optimized way possible. And yeah, on this we add two things. Narrative events, which you may have seen in other games, strategy games like Crusader Kings 2, or even roguelikes like FTL, and those the goal of the narrative events is to actually prime the pump of narrative emergence. Basically, as humans, we are always creating stories. People call it, some people call it confabulation, some people call it, I don't remember the name, but apophony or something like this. And basically, when you are recalling anything, you are actually building a story that makes sense in your head. Your memory is crappy, and that's the case for everyone. And when you play video games and you tell what you did in the game to a friend, you're actually reconstructing everything in your head to make it make sense. And the idea is that those events are going to be the bricks in your story, in the story that you are going to tell, because they are going to put your mind into a narrative mindset. And so everything that happens in the game, all of the drama that we want to add, like the stuff that happens on the floor, or the VIPs that come in and just do their thing, we want you to get out of the game and think of your experience as a story. And the second thing are the VIPs. So they are like strong characters. And the idea is that in order to add depth to the Tycoon formula, which tends sometimes to be a bit more superficial, and maybe to try to have the economic depth that you could find in a sim, but here we still want to have a Tycoon that's easily digestible. And so that's why we have the VIPs that are very high maintenance characters, but it's worth it. So if they really like your casino, they're going to drop a lot of money into your casino. They're going to bring the cash. They're going to make everybody around them happy, and happy clients tend to spend more. And so that's a good thing.
Can you talk about like the art, the visual aesthetic of your game? It has a really unique art style. And where did the idea for animal patron humans come about?
We had multiple artistic direction that we were kind of thinking about when starting to work on the game. And we knew we wanted this art style of like the 50s, the 60s, and we know we kind of like this Miami color scheme, like the Art Deco Miami stuff, with a lot of pink, blue, and like pastels. And it's because it's vibrant, it's very different from anything, and we think it makes for a really nice and cozy place to spend time in, and that's what we're aiming for in the game. And so the whole point of actually making this art direction look like this was to make a cozy place in which we could tell stories that were not so cozy. And so the good thing is, first, animals are very recognizable. So if you see a deer or a bear, you see that they are different. And so you expect them to interact differently. And since tycoons are mostly played from a bird's eye view, well, you are going to differentiate clients, employees, or whatever is on your floor, because they are like shaped differently. And secondly, they are animals. And so that means that you can treat them in a more cartoony way and not feel bad about it. So basically, if you have two animals fighting on your floor and they are like animals with human bodies, it's a lot less violent than it would be if it was actually humans fighting, and then you would see them like have a black eye or whatever. But here we can actually, address some stuff that casino are known to be like. We can address some stuff that casinos are why they are bad, in a much more in a much lighter way. I think what we are aiming for is like what The Simpsons does, where they have like these characters. You have a character that dies in a dramatic and funny way, and like it's never too sad. Some episodes are sad, of course, but most of them are very light and digestible. And it's like watching The Simpsons on repeat is a very soothing experience in the end. And so that's why our animals are there, is that they will disarm actually bad feelings that you might have about the actions that happen in your casino.
So how big can you build your casino? And is there also a hotel element to your casino as well? Is there just purely a casino?
Yeah, so you are exactly putting your finger on why we chose to tackle the casino fantasy in a tycoon game. If we took 100 people and we asked them to write the 10 things they expect from a casino game, I am 90% sure that 80% of it would be common to everyone. And so that's why it's so strong. You know what you want, you know what to expect. And so that means that when we are going to listen to players, we shouldn't have too many things that are completely unexpected, and we will have to change plans. And so that means that we can actually integrate like building the game with people to actually make it so that what's in their head actually ends up in the game. And then, do we have a hotel? Not yet. Do we want a hotel? Well, one day. The thing is, metaphorically, there is a hotel on top of your casino. Like in the events, we mentioned the fact that you have a hotel, etc. And the goal is like everything that is written in events that will one day be in the game. We are not going to ship and forget Blooming Business Casino. We really want to build the game, and so it means that once it's released, we're going to continue working on it, and we're going to add stuff on it, and we're going to open the trunk so that the front trunk, I don't know. We are going to open the panel with to everyone. Basically, if you want to change anything in Blooming Business Casino, at some point, because technically it's quite hard to do, to have such big modding openness, but we want to have it because we know that this is a richness, and that if you give the keys to the truck, people will use it however they see fit. And we are not here to tell you how to have fun. We are here to create something that will have you have fun, and so if you want to change it to have more fun, just go at it.
Just because I'm curious, can you have a side business that launders money through the casino?
Currently, this is definitely something we want to have. Like, I have an idea on a post-it somewhere that says, have the players sign the books regularly, so that the players like sign the books and yeah, this is legit. And at some point, you have the IRS coming in and saying, okay, what's up with all these books, dude? I really want that because it's actually really easy to launder money through a casino. People don't expect it. Like, they will say, oh, there is a lot of legal stuff, but no. You get cash, and you want to launder money. Usually it's cash, so you just get cash into chips. Then you say, oh, I lost 40%, and it's okay, and there is a small cut. And so if you are the mafia and you actually own the casino, it's a really good way to launder money.
What kind of animal would the IRS be if they showed up in your game to check your books in your casinos?
If depending on how rich I am, I would say either they are a raccoon because they like to dig dirt and to go through everything, but maybe an owl,
Someone who's like
you know,
smart, who has like like it's visualized as someone who's smart and elderly and like gets it. Okay, that makes
yeah,
sense.
exactly. An owl with glasses and like a suit, and it works like this, really.
So like, I mean, obviously your game's in early access. Like, what does early access open? Like, early access is relatively a common thing now in games, but it didn't used to be. What does it open up for your studio to have that people be able to play your game early and give you feedback on it? And does that affect development time at all? If like, because I mean, like Fortnite was in early access for years. I think people even forgot it was in early access when it hit it big, and it still had a soft release because people were like, oh, it was in early access. I didn't know. Like.
Well, I think it's a bit when you talk about making games, the one common thread that has existed in like every single game making endeavor that was successful is the fact that you got people to play your game and to tell you how shit it was. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but basically that's how you make games. You create something and you think it's good, you put it in someone's hand, and at the end they haven't laughed, they haven't smiled, and you're like, okay, how bad was it? And then they tell you. And so the big companies, even before you could release early access game or do open betas or whatever, they would get hundreds of people to come and play the games at regular intervals during production. So it was actually, early access that was limited in how many people and how long they could play, but it's not so different. The only it's basically the internet version of playtests. But of course, it's not treated the same way because when you do a playtest, you are much more focused and you know what you're testing for, etc. So it can be very scientific. But the thing is, early access it's like how could I say it? Those people who go to like build a castle every summer and they say, okay, we're going to build this castle like they did in medieval times, and so they get a forge out and they get those cranes like wooden cranes that they act as if they were in the Middle Ages. Well, it's the same in early access. Basically, you get people to come to something that's completely broken, but they see the potential. And the good thing is that I think if you have an open mind and that you understand that anyhow. There is a huge fallacy of control in video games. When you're designing a game, you cannot control everything. Like you can control even less in a game that you would in any other medium. And so, like you cannot control the shot in a video game, except if you take out you take away the interactivity. But then, is it a game? Is it like a video game? So, the fallacy of control, you have to get rid of it. It's the Zen exercise, and you just say, okay. This does not matter. So you try to make the best game that you can, that it's fun, and you concentrate on like the core thing. And once this is good, people will recognize it, and once they start playing, they will like it. And the people who come to your early access title, they are the people who are into this kind of game or that fell in love with this game. And so those people are going to be usually much more engaged, and so their feedback loop is going to be much quicker than anywhere else, and you're going to have much more feedback. Plus, as a young studio, it's really nice because it makes cash go in, which means that you can actually make the game the best it could be through early access because people are giving you feedback and it's a positive loop. Feedback, cash, so it gives you time to actually treat the feedback, which will bring more cash, etc., etc. So I think that's why early access is such a big part of the industry now. But I also understand that not all games are compatible with early access, because if you're making an early access game and it's a narrative game, it's a 2-hour narrative game, you have the first hour, it's not going to work. You have to have depth, like systemic depth, if you want your game to actually have an interesting early access, because each time you are adding something on a systemic game, you are actually factorizing the gameplay time. You are not adding to it. If your game is only incremental adds in playtime, you are not, early access is not for you, I think.
And then, like, when does this? Do you have a hard release date for Blooming Business Casino, or are you still like to be determined? Like, when does the game come out, and what platforms are you aiming for at launch?
All right, so we are definitely not ready to talk about that. As a creative director, I will tell you when it's done, when we're happy with it, because as early access can be, you don't want the game to be in a bad shape once you release it, because first impression is very important. And so we want people to have a good impression for our game, and which is why we are like releasing a trailer during the Guerrilla Collective, and we are going to release a demo for the Steam Fest, because we can control those moments. It's the last time we can actually control what the game looks like and feels like to this extent, because afterwards we are going to release, like the demo will be released, and I'm sure people are going to break the demo because that's what people do. And I mean, good for them and good for us, because we will learn from it. So everybody's going to have fun. And secondly, as soon as we announce the date and we release the game in early access, it's there, you know. I think there is this quote by Miyamoto who says something like, if you like, a bad game that is delayed can still become a good game, but a bad game that shipped will always be a bad game. Well, it's the same for early access, you know, in the end.
Yeah, and because I have to ask, like, I'm looking like little cute animals. It's kind of a simulator game. Wow, this game seems like it would be really good on the Nintendo Switch for all those Animal Crossing people, you know? Like, I don't know. Any plans for Nintendo Switch?
I am not even American, and I'm going to quit the fifth.
Oh, where can they go to find out more information about your studio and about Blooming Business Casino?
All right, so the best way to find us is to go on bloomingbusiness.game, which is the site for the Blooming Business Casino game. And otherwise, you can just tune in, wishlist us on Steam, and wishlisting us will open up the news feed that we have on the game, and we regularly post dev updates there. Actually, there was one, I think, today or yesterday.